for it. You're live.
All right. So the conversation that we were just having off the air, it sounds like you might be the guy to hook me up. We need some intro music for this this podcast desperately, Pat.
It's coming.
Yeah, Trent's just gonna just sing us a song.
This week in real estate with Jonathan Harmon.
I love it. That's right, fantastic. Okay, thanks, man. So anyway, welcome to This Week in Real Estate. As Trent so eloquently just said, I'm Jonathan Harmon with J Harmon Home Team of Keller Williams. And before we get rolling, I'm going to introduce Mr. Darrell Huffman here in just a minute, but which I guess I just kind of did. Yep. But we do want to hear from Bryan Nale. Or no, we don't have anything to hear from Bryan Nale. Or do we?
Do.
We do?
Of course we do.
Okay. So Bryan Nale with Primis Mortgage. He is my guy when it comes to real estate mortgages, those kinds of things. And he is a huge supporter of Spread the Positive as well. So let's hear from Bryan.
Hey, my name is Bryan Nale. I'm a mortgage loan officer with Primis Bank Mortgage, and I want to tell you that I absolutely love being a member of the Spread the Positive Network. It's such a great mission, and it helps bring so much positivity to our community. It's a true pleasure to be part of. There are a lot of ways to navigate financing a home, and in markets like this, having the advice of a trusted local professional is key to making sure you get the right advice for your specific circumstances. Whether you're interested in the purchase of a new home, second home, or have a need for a refinance, I'd love to earn your trust. If I can help you nail your mortgage, call me at 615-243-3976 or visit nailyourmortgage.com, and I'll be happy to talk with you.
Primis Mortgage is a subsidiary of Primis Bank, a member FDIC, equal housing opportunity. As always, all loans are subject to approval. Primis Mortgage, NMLS number 1894879.
That music is just so peppy.
It's vibey.
You know,
very vibey.
Nothing that gets you going on a Monday morning like Bryan Nale's commercial music. It's fantastic. So, Bryan, we love you, man. Thank you for supporting Spread the Positive and helping with the mission of getting good news out into the community and bringing light to what's going right.
That's it. Nailed it.
So, so without further ado, I've got my friend Darrell Huffman here. Darrell is a agent also in my Keller Williams office.
That's right.
And an auctioneer. You opened the auction division
2020.
I was close. I said 2 years ago. Yeah. There we go.
That's right.
And which is cool. It's just one more way that Darrell has found to tailor the work to his clientele. So now he's, as full service as you can get, right? So we can go this route, we can go this route. Which way is gonna work best for your scenario? And auctions are always intriguing to me because there's a whole lot of what people think they are that they really aren't, and then there's some that people think that they are not, and they really kind of are. You follow that? Yeah. Darrell was like, do I need to take notes during this? I was like, no, probably not. Anyway, let's back up for a sec. You've been a licensed agent since
94. And I came into the real estate business as part of the auction business as well.
Okay.
Worked for some friends of ours, longtime auctioneers here in Murfreesboro.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's really all I know is the combination of the two.
And I think that's probably what's the most important thing that we'll take away from today's little episode here is that there is a space for the combination of the two, right?
Absolutely.
There's some auctioneers that think you should auction everything. And then there's some real estate agents that say you should never auction anything. And I think both of those are wrong.
Jonathan, are those the same agents that have been auctioneers for the last couple of years?
Yeah, I don't know.
Every deal seemed like it turned into an auction.
I've heard that a whole bunch is that when we have multiple offer scenarios and, we do kind of a closed blind bid, so to speak.
Right.
And, people start throwing in all kinds of stuff, right? However much over list price and waive this inspection and waive this appraisal. And, we're going to pay above an appraisal price and all these things. They really kind of did in a lot of ways create an environment that's very similar to what you create at auction.
That's right. We've used the auction premise over the last couple of years in the regular business,
mm-hmm.
and which is what we preach when we show up to an auction presentation is, hey, have a great property. Let's showcase it. Let's get the excitement up and have everybody that's interested here bidding on the same terms at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And the regular market has really taken on that premise over the last few years, which the terms were, hey, there are no terms.
Right. You're buying the house.
You're buying it for
or
X
not.
amount.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's what I've been doing in the auction business for the last 27, 28 years.
But isn't there kind of a presumption that when you auction a home, that there's something, I'm going to use this term, but it's not exactly what I mean, but there's something wrong with it, like it's an estate, it's it's an as-is deal. Maybe it's not in great shape. Maybe it's been neglected. Maybe it's, in some way, shape, or form that it's, for lack of a better word, it's lesser.
That's right. Or
it's not fit. Yeah, it's not fit to go on the quote normal market.
We take those two.
Mm-hmm.
We take those two. What we look at is, again, not every deal is an auction with me. I'm going pretty conservatively as far as expectations,
because it is less predictable than a sale. Although the last 6 months,
right,
show me predictability in the last 6 months, right?
So what the idea we present at auctions, and again, we train our agents especially at Keller Williams, and when we co-op with other brokerage as well that don't have the auction service.
Mm-hmm.
But pretty much the way we train our agents is, here are the things to look for. Any kind of these buzzwords you hear. Distress is one of those.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, you need to sell in a hurry. I don't want to do anything to repair my property. As is.
And for the record, you're going to hear me say this, as is does not necessarily mean bad condition. It just means that they may not have the resources, the ability, the time to do anything to it, to prepare it necessarily. Or if you turn something up, they may not have the ability. Maybe they're in another state. They may not have the ability to manage repair work.
Right. And I'll give you just an example of some of the things we come across. We offered a property at auction, actually have it under contract last Thursday. And an agent in our office called and said, here, I'm in this situation. It's an estate. The heirs, the 2 children, really young, mortgage is behind, don't know when the foreclosure process could start.
We need to get her done.
We need to get her done in a couple of weeks if possible. And it needs to be as is. We don't have time to wait through inspections and then find out we're not closing.
Yeah.
And so no contingencies, no inspections, no nothing. We just want to have a contract in 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And so
there's probably equity in the home.
So,
I mean, if you've had a house for more than 2 years at this point, you've likely got equity in it, unless you just completely destroyed it,
And this wasn't a cookie cutter auction that you think about. It wasn't a dilapidated house in town that, we knew there were going to be only investors there. It was a cookie cutter house over in Spring Hill in a neighborhood, only a 20-year-old home. Wasn't really in bad repair.
Mm-hmm.
It needed a few things, but 20-year-old home is going to need a few things. And so we did. We went to auction with it. We do sometimes rule out the FHA and the VA buyer just simply because we don't abide by those terms.
Mm-hmm.
It's as is. We don't want to take a chance that an FHA appraiser is going to come in there and ask for repairs. That's not what we sell at auction. And so sure enough, we go to auction with it, had a great crowd, a really good 2-week advertising period. We do have online bidders as well. So go there, get the job done. I don't promise them the moon on that situation, just simply because knew we weren't going to have FHA and VA buyers fighting for it. Did have investors. The family that ended up with that property are planning on moving in. So they got to buy, again, they got to buy on their terms. They got it for a fair price. The sellers also, we exceeded what the reserve on the auction was. So we
Mm-hmm.
exceeded that. So we like to think everybody was pleased in that situation.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, in that scenario, and I know nothing about the home or the price or anything like that, but in that scenario, is it possible that you could have got more if you had gone a traditional route?
It's
possible.
That's potentially
possible.
True.
But you would have significantly more things to worry about. You would have significantly more steps to take, and the possibility of it falling through definitely goes up.
That's right. And we sell situations as much as we do properties.
Yes.
And that's absolutely what happened there. We were selling the situation, and the young heirs that were left didn't have the means to make mortgage payments, electricity payments, water bill payments. I mean, they just didn't.
Even the repair work if it needed something.
Therefore, the potential there for substitute trustee sale, foreclosure was a little bit higher.
Mm-hmm.
And so.
And that's a shame for that to even be possible in a market where a home has equity.
Right. So their only chance to realize any of the equity in the home, they felt like, was the auction process.
Mm-hmm.
And we guided them through that. Pretty conservative on a reserve, because we don't want to spend advertising budget money for them and not have an expectation of having an auction, having a sale that day.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Very good. So you said you were raised in the auction business. Basically, what does that mean?
Well, let's say I was raised in the auction business. Just since I've been in the real estate business from '94, went to work here in Murfreesboro with some friends of mine.
Mm-hmm. Raised in real estate in the auction business, I should clarify.
Right.
Yeah,
right. That's correct. But you do rewind, and my parents, as I was growing up, did a lot of flip properties, a lot of rehabs while we were living there.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I ever had real countertops. It was always plywood and carpet. Carpet was a luxury back then. But so I got into the real estate business before I even wanted to or thought about it.
Mm-hmm.
And with that was around some auctions and things that were intriguing, some great realtors that I just looked up to and thought, that looks like it would be an interesting business. But as I got into the real estate business, and what got me into the real estate business, I know you didn't ask this, but
that's
it's
okay.
A story.
Yeah.
What got me into the real estate business is I was buying a house knowing that my good long-time job I had after being a telephone man in the Air Force, got out. I was buying a house, and my realtor out of the blue said, "Hey, I think you'd make a good realtor." I said, "Well, thanks." Okay. So ended up buying my house, talking with the managing broker there, and the rest is history.
Yeah.
Excuse me. I had a full-time job for a year until company closed, or actually I left before it closed. And then again, they were primarily auction company. So learned the auction business as I was learning the regular side of the real estate business.
Mm-hmm.
It's a blast. Worked there for 5 years and learned a lot. I think one of the more innovative companies in the area, and we're still friends to this day, and I still learn a lot from them. Hopefully I can teach other people as well.
Yeah. That's good. So have you, when you look, so the auctioneer community is significantly smaller than the general real estate agent community in our area. There's probably 20 of you guys, maybe 30 in the area.
I'd say that's right. And it does feel it's shrinking as far as the population numbers.
I would agree, especially as a percentage of the population growth compared to that particular group. Do you ever, all right, true confession time. Okay.
Right.
All right, here we go. So you ever flip through the auctions and be like, oh, I should have got that one. Like maybe you have a connection, or you ever look at it and go, oh, they are doing this totally wrong.
I attend auctions regularly when I don't have an auction to learn. I don't think we can ever do enough learning. And I do things differently than some other people. As a whole, auctions all work the same way.
Right.
I mean, you get there, you start bidding, and whoever the highest bidder is, hopefully it's enough to sign a contract. I do learn things every auction I go to. Really enjoy watching some, and then others.
They can get pretty entertaining, can't they?
They can get pretty entertaining. And I hope that I'm entertaining when I'm up there. I'm telling you, wherever I go, have a good time.
Yeah.
And I want everybody else to feel that energy. I want everybody else to have a good time as well. if you know my normal personality, it's pretty laid back.
Yes.
I'm pretty laid back. I feel like I have an alter ego when the mic comes on and the auction starts.
Yeah.
And I've had other people inform me of that as well.
They're like, who is that guy?
That is right.
Dr. Darrell and Mr. Hyde kind of thing, right?
That is right. But I do feel like that, you know, looking back at some of the old school guys, when I first got into the business, you know, Maples and Clyde Whites and all those guys definitely set the tone in this area. And you go to some areas and you say auction and they look at you like they don't even know what that word means.
And then there's also some areas where it's been almost blighted in a way that people have treated people badly. And I don't know enough about it to know how this is possible, but the auctioneers have kind of taken advantage of some of the, I mean, you can feel it, you know, you mentioned in an auction, I've had this happen before, and they're like, oh,
right.
No.
And I think that's all information on the front end. You know, a couple different types of auctions. You know, there's the absolute where, hey, we're signing a contract
today,
that day, regardless. I always have the questions, what about a snowstorm or a rainstorm? Or
you cancel the auction.
We absolutely have. I've not canceled an auction in my past. We've moved them for an hour or two after people show up. Quick story. We had an auction in Nashville, maybe Gallatin. One day we were selling a couple of duplexes, and it was in the afternoon. You know, you see afternoon auctions, especially in the summertime when it stays daylight until 8 o'clock. It's some 5 o'clock auctions. Well, that was during thunderstorm season. And so figure out that at 5 o'clock when our auction is scheduled, terrible weather is predicted here. And small yards can't put a tent up anyway, because it would get blown away. So we racked our brains. All the duplexes were occupied, and they were small, 850, 900.
So you're not going inside.
Not going inside. So just said, I have to get creative. Ended up chartering a bus to pull up in front of the site, and we all got on the bus and sold in the bus.
That is fascinating. I can honestly say I've never heard of that before.
It worked. And so, you know, maybe one of these days a bus is in our future.
Yeah.
And so it worked out well. I honestly did look at used school buses after that, and they're somewhat affordable.
They are.
They're somewhat affordable.
They are. But worst case scenario, you have a situation like the Nashville floods, and that happens to be the day that you're going to have the auction. You don't have to go absolute on that day. Like, you can give proper notice.
Well, and what happens is once you accept a bid on an absolute auction, once the auctioneer acknowledges a bid with auction,
you got to finish.
You're supposed to finish.
Right. But if you don't start,
right, then that's a different story. And so I'm really careful, and I'm in this business to serve. I'm in this business because I love it. I love helping people. If you've been in business 28 years, typically I feel like you've treated people okay. A lot of that's repeat business for me, and reputation. You know, there's one bad thing a long way.
It does, and it takes a whole bunch of good to overcome the one bad.
That's right. So information, education on the front end with my agents that refer these auctions, and with the client themselves. And the majority of my auctions, I love absolute auctions. I do feel like that absolute auctions bring out a crowd. They're serious buyers. They know we're going to have a sale, so they show up. So better crowds, maybe there are better crowds at absolute auctions, which offer better results, right?
Right.
Well,
because that's part of it, is the energy that's involved in rolling that thing forward. People get kind of caught up in it.
But it's nearly impossible to offer an absolute auction on a property that has a reserve or has a mortgage. You know, because you have to make the mortgage. They can't give you clear title without making the mortgage. So I feel like I'm educational when I get to an auction appointment. I don't have to have an auction. So if it's not an auction, I let people know that. I'm somewhat conservative. I want them to be surprised in a good way when I'm finished.
Sure.
And so So under promise, over deliver. That's what I look for. Every now and then, any auctioneer is just going to miss one. You're not going to have 100% sale rate unless each of them are absolutes.
Right.
So it just happens. We miss it. I've missed the market on listings before too.
That's right.
It just you're going to do it. If you do it long enough, you're going to miss the market, and that you just have to say.
Well, and especially in a market that's it's actively changing. I mean, if it's super stable, super predictable, maybe don't miss quite as much, but even there you still can, but with the market moving, you're going to miss out sometimes.
That's right. So looking back at your question, what gives auctioneers a good name or bad name? I think the education and just some humility there.
Mm-hmm.
I admit if something went wrong and should have been differently, it's easy for me to say, you know what, again, we just missed the market. This happened, that happened. I thought too much of your property. The market didn't think the same thing that you and I thought of it.
Mm-hmm.
So I start getting feedback. Hey, well, this sold the property over the weekend that is used as multifamily, but it's not zoned multifamily. I can't advertise it as multifamily if it's not.
Mm-hmm.
And so I advertise that as well as I can, get creative as possible without misrepresenting it for our company or the client
mm-hmm.
or the seller.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a contract on it, and we have a good buyer, and we're going to have a closing. And so we're meeting all the needs there, but that's something I'm really careful of. And I explain that going in, hey, can't misrepresent this property. It is what it is. And hopefully people can see the potential of it and see the rental income and the history and so forth. Still can't misrepresent it. So
that's right. Well, you run into that with septics a lot. I would imagine, there's a 3-bedroom septic system. I can't help it that you added 3 extra rooms onto it that you're using as bedrooms
without a permit.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. So, who is the perfect auction client? Like when you walk in the room and you say, there's no doubt in my mind, this is an auction.
So that different ones, but what comes to mind the most is I look for those properties and pretty much let my sellers know that, okay, you have a property that is in need of a lot of repair, but it's in a great area, in a high demand area. We're over near MTSU. We're near the campus, high traffic, going to be easy to rent, great investment for the future. But we know it's not going to, again, qualify for an FHA loan or a VA loan or even regular Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac. But we know we're going to have people interested. It's easy for me to say this is absolutely the best way for you to sell this property because we're going to have all the same people bidding on it anyway,
mm-hmm.
and it's going to get competitive. We're going to be staring at each other and saying, okay, he bid that, so I can, my crew can fix that for less than his crew can. So I'm going to go ahead and bid one more time. And then the same thing goes on in the mind of the other.
Yeah. What's another $2,000 or what's another? Yeah.
Right. And we see that. And so I can honestly say that that's some of the easiest to say, hey, this is the best way. It's absolutely the best way. And then that situation I told you about where the estate and the timing is there and they didn't have time to wait on inspections and so forth. I'm confident saying, hey, this is the best way. I'll go into, Indian Hills and they're not in a hurry. Nothing's going on that would cause a distress situation. Sometimes if it's supply and demand, if it's a property to be in high demand, then maybe so, but just a regular cookie cutter lot, I may say, hey, what your expectations are and mine, they're 2 different things. So don't know that I'm comfortable doing that because I have to agree to take it as well.
Mm-hmm.
Because here's what happens. If we go through all that, I spend advertising money that they've given me, but at the very end, I don't charge a no-sale fee. So it has to work for me as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And in that situation, it might be better if they want to kind of test the market, because the other thing, there's a perception that if a property sells very, very quickly, that maybe we left money on the table, right? Like I've heard that a lot, and it's just not always true. Sometimes it could be true. We hurried and took a deal that we might not should have. But for the most part, if it's priced right, it's going to sell in the time that the market is selling properties, if that makes sense. So,
Right.
last year, if it sold in 2 days, that's about right, but if it sold in a week, that's not necessarily right. Well, now that's completely different, isn't it? So
That's right. It kind of try to look at a normal market, and normal market means something different to a lot of people.
mhm.
I guess I looked back at a conversation I had with an agent that's been in the business a couple of years. They were in the office and asked me if I could help them with a repair proposal, that they had never done one,
Mhm.
never done a repair proposal on a regular listing. And that was just eye opening for me.
It's wild, isn't it?
It is wild.
Yeah.
And of course, happy to help. But it's that their normal market is different than our normal market.
Yeah. Yeah. And to me, the best mark, and we'll shift the conversation to this. We got a few more minutes. What would you say is the best gauge of, for whatever the word means, normal market? How do we measure that? How do we know if we're in a more normal market?
Well, first off, I can remember in what my definition of a normal market showing up at a listing presentation, because I'm a real estate broker as well. I do regular listing sales and or auctions, whatever I feel is the best for the client.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember my listing presentation saying, well, I'm going to list it for a minimum of 6 months because 4 months is about average days on market.
Mm-hmm.
That is not a normal market for somebody who's been in the business for 2-3 years.
No,
it's not.
I mean, honestly, probably not even 5 years.
Right.
Because we were accelerating before we took off.
That's right. And so, yeah, normal to me is not. I just put my son in a house off of River Rock over there. This same house, I remember it selling for $85,000, and I think we were in there at like $280,000.
Mm-hmm.
So he kept telling me, I'm like, hey son, you need to buy a house. You need to buy a house. It's easy for you to say, interest rates are going up. I'm like, hey, when I bought my first house, interest rates were 9%. And he said, yeah, but the same house was 80,000.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, I guess that's a good point.
It's a valid point.
It's
for sure.
just different. So that part of it, I remember the steady growth, but when I started seeing the, $300 a square foot for 1,100 square feet,
it's crazy.
That is not normal to me. And I don't know that it should be normal to anybody. It's just, I'm seeing some of that kind of even out some just in my smaller market.
Mm-hmm.
I don't sell 200 houses a year or anything, but what I've seen is I think people are finally realizing, some sellers are finally realizing that, hey, I don't think I can stretch it that much, and then expect an offer above, that auction that normally would happen with a listing. It's just not happening right now on all of them. I've seen a few of them.
A few.
Still.
Yeah. If it's something special.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm with you. I think days on market is the biggest measure of normal. And I think probably for our area, like a truly flat, normal, 3% growth type market, you're like, I think you nailed it, about 4 months, somewhere in that range, right. 4 to 6 months to market, and then another month to get it closed. That's pretty normal. Other parts of the country, it's 6 months. Other parts of the country, than that, it might be 9 months. It just depends on how that population is fluctuating. But pricing to me that's a function of the days on market.
Right.
If we have one average day on market, then the prices are going to go up rapidly.
Absolutely.
And that's what we experienced, and if we have 4 months worth of days on market as an average, prices are going to be pretty flat. They're not going to go down, but they're not necessarily going to go up.
Right.
We start stretching that out to 365 days on market, and that's when we're going to start to see some of those prices really, like the overall price level.
That's right, Jonathan. And you and I are in a great market.
We are.
We
insulated.
were somewhat insulated from what happened last time. Still great industry here. We're just outside Nashville. Nashville still has some things going on down there.
Mm-hmm.
And then, Murfreesboro. I remember when I first got in the business, Nissan was really taking off.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was just great. It
was what, not even 10 years old at that point, right? Then they well, I guess it was just over. I think they opened in 85.
I believe that's right. That's right. So, and then of course the metropolis I came from, Eagleville. I remember going, seeing the sign. I don't remember if it was population 454, forever. And the other day I was looking at the population out there, and Jonathan, I think it's like doubled in size.
What?
Yeah.
It's not 4 digits yet though, right?
Not 4 digits.
Yeah, I didn't think so.
I think population is still less than 900 in the city of Eagleville, but I think the rural route, the mailing route 37060 was probably 2,500.
Yeah.
Something like that. But yeah, new subdivisions going on out there. Yeah. Another one approved. So, and then those areas are still in high demand. Again, those high demand areas, days on market still going to be less. Things are selling better.
Mm-hmm.
I'm out in Rockvale right now in a neighborhood that historically has done well. Supply and demand, plays a part with prices and so forth. And it's still, I think it's still somewhat insulated.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
Well, and schools drive a lot of that. Eagleville School has a great reputation. Rockvale High School is the newest school in the county. So people they tend to flock that way. And
That's right.
And it's been interesting to see that. I mean, when Blackman High School opened, that area exploded. When Stewart's Creek opened, that area exploded. And so it is interesting to see, to watch the school board and the county commission to determine what the next hot area. I mean, they truly do set that trend a lot of times.
I've seen it. Again, with the Eagleville deal, the K through 12, and still, I'm not sure what their student count is. Probably still less than 1,000 K through 12.
Yes,
800 maybe.
Probably.
And then you look up, Rockvale opens, 2,500 plus first year
right out the gate.
And
they
so
were already overcrowded.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, I go by there, watch them pulling those portables out right now. Hopefully they've added on enough that they can accommodate those numbers.
It's crazy. It's crazy. But here's, I tell this story a lot. When you look at the state report card, Rutherford County is kind of the best kept secret as far as schools go. Like, we're in almost every measure, we're second in the state, only behind Williamson County. And it's a very close margin.
Right.
And they just do a better job of kind of marketing that. Because if you ask people who's the best, what district or whatever has the best schools in the state, almost everybody automatically, oh, it's Williamson County.
Right.
Well, who's number 2? Crickets. Nobody knows. Well, it's us.
Yeah. I have that conversation a lot, Jonathan, because Eagleville, is that right out there, borders College Grove community.
Mm-hmm.
They built a new subdivision out there on the end of Alisona Road, and beautiful homes out there.
That the one kind of in the hollow with the horses and stuff?
Absolutely.
Yep.
They it was a big farm, the Bell Farm, several years ago, and they've gone in there and developed that Magnolia Valley Farms.
It's gorgeous.
Yeah, it is a gorgeous community. So there are people that really had a tough time. Oh, do I move out of College Grove into Rutherford County?
The schools.
Yeah, the schools.
Do your research, dude.
To Eagleville. And so I've had that conversation a lot, and sometimes I win that, and sometimes I don't.
Yeah.
But whatever they're comfortable with. But that's an easy sell. That area right there is an easy sell because of the look of that. It's just a beautiful place.
It really is. Yeah. I remember touring that when they were first developing those lots. Some of those lots are a little crazy going up the hillsides and stuff, but yeah, it's gorgeous. All right. So give me like 3 facts about auctions that most people don't know.
Well,
or at least know wrong. Let's put it that way.
It's not a last resort. That's number one. It's not a last resort. For most, it is a last resort for some.
Sure.
Which I'm glad to be of service when that happens. But easiest way to disperse an estate when you have personal property furniture,
because you do all of that too, right?
Do all of that too.
Mm-hmm.
That hasn't grown in the past. Internet's changed that some. There are online auctions and so forth to where we clear out the personal property that way to get the real estate cleaned out.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the biggest thing. It's not only a last resort. the auction business as a whole, it's changing. There are companies now that only do online real estate auctions.
Wow.
I like to I'm old school. I like to show up in person.
I want to touch it and smell it. And yeah,
that's right. And so the second fact is the business is changing, and we have to change with it.
Mm-hmm.
That's something important, just like the real estate industry, the regular real estate industry. We've had auctions before to where we do simulcast. So we offer it online and in person at the same time. So we're webcasting each auction.
So you can bid live online while somebody is standing here bidding.
That's right.
With their hand.
That's right. And the strangest auction that I've done is we had that situation. We were over on Clark Boulevard. We had a yard full of people, never got an in-person bid. Every bid we got was online. And real estate broker out of California bought the property.
Isn't that something?
And before the auction started, we had already met our reserve. Before we started the live portion of the auction, we'd already met our reserve. So fun day. Buyer got what they wanted for the price they obviously were happy with, and seller was ecstatic about it. And then third fact, stressful but fun. We make them fun, and I warn people that because we do bring a lot of energy and so forth in the process. We're dealing with estates, sometimes a tough day for people.
Sure.
It's where they grew up. It's where their parents lived.
They had Christmas there last year, and it was the last Christmas with mom or dad.
That's right. That's right. And so that, again, as far as the certainty of the process, we collect 10% down payment. We don't normally even call it earnest money. We collect 10% down payment the day of.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have no contingencies. Our auction contract page is auction contract is 2 pages long.
Wow.
Versus 10 or 11.
It's 10, by the way, for a quote normal sale. Yeah.
Because we have no contingencies in there. So it's absolutely one of the easiest ways to sell with the certainty being there.
Mm-hmm. If you've got to rip the Band-Aid off, it's a good way to do that.
That's right. That's right.
For whatever reason that you might need to do that.
So it's an auction savvy market. We have Murfreesboro, Tennessee. Since I was a kid, I remember auctions. You go into some areas, and again, they don't know what the auction. I've gone into areas and had auctions. Had an auction several years ago in Cleveland, Tennessee. People, I was putting the signs up, and they say, "What are you doing? Having an auction? Oh, that's not going to work. That's not going to work here." And it did. We sold out personal property and sold the property.
So then you wonder why, right? And then that's where was there a bad actor there at some point that kind of ruined the feel of it for some?
That's right. And you're talking about bad actors, and I still get that every now and then. Hey, I had an auction one time and this happened. I had an auction one time and that happened. Like, well, you can say that about just about anything you do.
Sure.
You had a bad experience at some point.
Do you think most likely that all comes down to just poor expectation setting?
I do feel like that's right. And that's something we do the entire process. We book the sale at obviously a price we agree on, a reserve price we agree on.
Mm-hmm.
And then based on activity, off some of the advertising and feedback I'm getting, I keep that communication going on with the seller all the way up to the day of.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, our sale this weekend, the seller's in Florida, so they're not there. So we kind of scan the crowd. Hey, we have this many registered bidders. We have this many people in the yard. We have this many people online. Here's the feedback I'm getting. Sometimes it's good. Sometimes it's bad. Or I say bad. Sometimes it's real. And so a little bit more real over the weekend. We worked hard. I mean, there was a lot of negotiating, but we got it done and everybody was happy.
Awesome.
And the buyer asked, could he close this week?
And you said, yes.
I said, let me ask a title company. And if they say yes, then yes.
Yeah. Very good. Well, Darrell, man, I appreciate it very much. The auction division at Keller Williams Realty here in Murfreesboro. Darrell's a good dude, and he will absolutely shoot you straight. I've consulted with him a couple of times about some various just oddball stuff that I'm a pretty smart guy, but I don't know everything. And there's been things, and even things where I think I know the answer, I really kind of want to get somebody else's opinion on. And Darrell's definitely one of those guys that I trust to do that. So if you have any auction needs, give him a call. Well, actually call me and I'll hook you up. That way I can get paid
Absolutely.
too. That would be even better. But,
right.
but anyway, no, he's a good guy to work with. Thank you very much for being on.
Jonathan, it's been my pleasure.
If you do have any auction questions, put them in the comments and I'll make sure Darrell gets them. Thanks for watching. Have a good week.